Do what's right for the patient is the bedrock upon which this college stands and is our lodestar. Do what's right for the patient is the cardinal principle of the original oath and of the pledge that you made tonight. Our calling, our mission, our passion are education and quality. These have been the watchwords of our college since the beginning. They are today and will be tomorrow. Development and great progress in American surgery have come from within the profession, not imposed from without, from surgeons who saw the shortcomings of their present and set out to correct them for the future. Tonight, I would like to tell you the story of the college, the who, what, why, and how we came here to celebrate your initiation into fellowship. Who? Surgeons who realized the pressing need for change. What? Improved education and quality. Why? Their education and training lacked standards. How? A new organization would be created with requirements for membership that would include standards of competence and character of the applicants affirmed by their peers. American medical education was deplorable in the early 20th century. In 1910, Abraham Flexner issued a report on medical education in the United States of Canada. There were 155 medical schools, and he placed them into one of three divisions. 22 required 2 years of college. 50, 4 years of high school, or its equivalent, and 83, or the majority, required grammar school and 2 years of high school. There were 13 postgraduate schools in the area, and he described them as an undergraduate repair shop. Instruction was elementary and practical, and students were passive. State medical boards were of no help. Of the 49 states and territories, there were 82 boards, and only 6 required 1 or more of college. None required postgraduate training. So licensure was granted by written examination only, and anyone who passed could begin practice the same day without any restrictions. Now, more about the who. The who is Franklin H. Martin, who was born in Canada and raised in rural Wisconsin, where he attended rural grammar schools and rural high schools. In August 1876, on what he describes as a blistering day, he was working in the fields, and he saw the local doctor, well-dressed, drive by in his buggy, and he said, "I will be a doctor." He found himself an apprenticeship, and in 1877 entered the Chicago Medical College. He described his experience there. The art of medicine was practiced to the exclusion of the science of medicine. Lectures and observations only. Some professors denied the germ theory, others practiced Listerism. In 1880, he began a 2-year internship at the Mercy Hospital. In those days, an intern was hardly more than a glorified orderly. In 1882, he entered practice. Here's how he described the evolution of a surgical career. In those good old days, surgeons developed and were not made to order. One learned his surgery by seeking out emergency cases. Those interested in gynecological surgery literally learned it by operating on our patients, on-the-job training. The following year, he performed his first abdominal operation in a large west room of an apartment. It was a bilateral oophorectomy, and the patient died on the 3rd postoperative day of sepsis. He later wrote in his autobiography, "There was little consolation in the fact that I had done the best I know. What was it that I did not know? To do what's right for the patient." In 1877, he finally obtained a hospital appointment to the Women's Hospital. And in 1889, driven to improve graduate education, Martin, along with others, established the postgraduate medical school and hospital in Chicago. And in 1905, Martin established Surgery, Gynecology, and Obstetrics, a practical journal for practical surgeons edited by active surgeons. SGNO was the original journal of postgraduate education, and in 1994, SGNO became the Journal of the American College of Surgeons. In 1903, the Society of Clinical Surgery was founded as a travel club of prominent surgeons who periodically visited one another's institutions to observe surgical procedures and engage in lively but informal discussions. Martin was not a member of that group, but he believed that show me was more convincing than tell me. So in an editorial in SGNO, he decided why not make a demonstration, and in an editorial the same year, this was the same year that Flexner issued his report, he issued an invitation to all the subscribers to learn by watching. Every man in the US and Canada particularly interested in surgery to observe the principal clinics in one of the large medical centers. Happened to be Chicago. 1,300 people showed up. He called this meeting the Clinical Congress of Surgeons of North America, and its first meeting was held in November 1910. Now, while traveling to the third annual meeting on the train, Martin thought there must be a change. By the time the train pulled into the station, he had this 5-point plan written to establish a College of Surgeons of the United States and Canada that would have a standard of professional, ethical, and moral requirements for every authorized graduate who practices general surgery or any of its specialties, as in the Royal Colleges. There would be a supplementary degree for operating surgeons, special letters to indicate fellowship in the college. There would be a published list of membership, and he proposed a committee of 12 to proceed with this plan. He concluded his report by saying, "This largest organization of surgeons on the American continent should assume the responsibility and the authority of standardizing surgery." They didn't ask, could they just did it. The plan was approved overwhelmingly by the assembled, and by November of that year, Martin had obtained a charter for the American College of Surgeons. In May of 1913, the organizing committee met, the charter was presented, and bylaws were proposed. Article 2 stated that the object of the college shall be to elevate the standard of surgery, to provide a method for granting fellowship, and to indicate to the public and the profession that the surgeon possessing such fellowship is well qualified to practice surgery as a specialty. J. M.T. Finney of Baltimore was the first president of the American College of Surgeons, and in his presidential address said, "The American College of Surgeons stands only for the good of humanity and the uplift of professional standards of morality and education. If it does not fulfill its special mission, it is your own fault." The founding regents were determined that surgeons of the future would be properly trained. Of the 17 founding regents, only 5 had college degrees. All had internships, and 2 had additional hospital experience of some time. 7 had spent time in Europe observing. There was only one, Walter Chipman of Canada, who had a modern path to certification. He had been educated in the United Kingdom. Foremost among the requirements for fellowship were the applicant's competence and character affirmed by their peers. All applications must provide a complete record of 50 consecutive cases as surgeon and abstracts of 50 additional cases as assistant or surgeon. Here's where a problem arose. In the first 2 years, over 80% of the applications could not be approved. Hospital records were incomplete or never existed. The regents addressed this problem promptly. In 1915, Charles Mayo said, "In this entire country, there's not even a minimum of hospital standards." The Board of Regents established the Committee on Hospital Standards with E.A. Codman as chair. In 1916, John G. Bowman, who was the first director of the college, said, "This work is not something we may do, we must do. It is our business to know what real training in surgery means. The particular training ground for the surgeon is the hospital." And in 1919, William Mayo, in his presidential address, said, "The college will demand special training. It's our duty to see that the facilities are developed." They charged Bowman with devising the minimum standard for hospitals. The minimum standard focused on 5 areas: an organized hospital staff of licensed medical graduates with rules for monthly conferences to review results, absolute prohibition of fee splitting, accurate and complete records for all patients, and diagnostic and therapeutic facilities must be available. In 1918 and 1919, college staff surveyed 692 hospitals of over 100 beds or more. The results by hospital were to be presented at the Clinical Congress in 1919. When the regents learned that only 89 hospitals met the minimum standard, the report was not given, and the results were burned in the boiler room of the hotel. However, by 1920, over 400 hospitals met the standard because the purpose of standards was to allow hospitals to improve. This certificate of approval was prominently displayed by hospitals for all to see. In his presidential address in 1928, George Stewart reported that the annual directory of the American Automobile Association provided a list of all approved hospitals. In 1952, the approvals program had grown so large and consumed so much of college resources that it was made an independent body, the Joint Commission. The regents then turned their attention to graduate training in surgery. This effort was led by Malcolm McEachern, and the regents in 1936 required that all applicants who graduated from medical school after 1938 have 3 years of postgraduate hospital training, 2 in an ACS-approved hospital. The following year, they added the requirement that their medical school must be ACS-approved. College staff reported in 1938 that there was no basic standard of uniformity in graduate training. So, in 1939, standards were published. The standards focused on the hospital, the resident, and required regular inspections of hospitals. This led to the first Residency Review Committee. The importance of establishing standards for hospitals and surgical training cannot be emphasized enough. These programs, instituted by a professional organization, fundamentally changed medical practice and training. Patients were no longer operated upon on the kitchen table in their home, and surgeons' education and training requirements were standardized. If the college had ceased to exist at this point, it would have more than fulfilled the expectations of Martin, Finney, and others, but this did not happen. The college continued to inspire quality, to maintain high standards for better outcomes. I would like to focus on 3 of the education and quality programs as examples of the continuing commitment of the college to education and quality for better outcomes. The Commission on Cancer and the Committee on Trauma were formed in the first decade of the college's existence, and the Committee on Emerging Surgical Technology and Education was formed in the last decade of the 20th century. In 1922, the Committee on Treatment of Malignant Diseases with Radium and X-ray was founded with Robert Greenough as their chair. In 1930, the committee issued the minimum standard for cancer clinics in general hospitals. The purpose was for cancer patients to receive quality treatment in their own community. And in 1953, the committee published a standardized method for reporting cancer end results. In 1965, the committee was joined by other organizations involved in the multidisciplinary treatment of cancer to form the Commission on Cancer. 2 of its most important activities are the National Cancer Database and the accreditation process for hospital cancer programs and specialized cancer programs. The process of accreditation is used not only for initial survey to verify achievement of program standards, but also for periodic review for compliance to maintain accreditation. In 1890, the American Surgical Association formed a committee to study the proper treatment of fractures of the femur. In 1921, the American Surgical Association issued a standard fracture report form, and the following year, the American College of Surgeons formed the Committee on Treatment of Fractures, with Charles Scudder as the chair. In 1931, it issued a manual on the treatment of fractures, and in 1939 became the Committee on Trauma. The Manual of Resources for Optimal Care of the Injured Patient was first issued in 1976 and continues to be an important directory. On February 17, 1976, at 6 p.m. in the evening, this airplane crashed into a field in rural Nebraska. The pilot was James K. Steiner, a fellow of the college. His wife was killed, and he and his 4 children were severely injured. At 2 a.m. the following morning, help was found. They were taken to a small rural hospital with no personnel or facilities equipped for care of patients with significant trauma. The injured were flown to Lincoln, where they subsequently recovered. Steiner wrote later that by 1977, folks got tired of hearing me complain that when I can provide better care in the field with limited resources than my children and I received at the primary facility, there is something wrong with the system, and the system must be changed. Simply stated, you can't blame them before you train them. So he and some colleagues decided to create a training course for the physicians of Nebraska. Their course was modeled on advanced cardiac life support, which was also developed in Lincoln, Nebraska, a couple of years before. They called their course Advanced Trauma Life Support, or ATLS. Skip Collicott was one of the group who developed the course, and he led the effort to have ATLS adopted by the Committee on Trauma, which it did in 1979, and the regents agreed. The following year, there were 41 courses with 460 students. In 2015, there were over 3,000 courses and 48,000 students trained. Since inception, there have been 75,000 courses with 1.5 million students. ATLS and other educational courses of the college are used not only for initial training, but also for periodic retraining to maintain knowledge and skills. Collicott became a regent and later director of the Division of Member Services and received the Distinguished Service Award. In 1987, the Trauma Center Verification Program began. There are 455 verified trauma centers in 426 institutions, and 26 have both adult and pediatric trauma centers. Linworth Jacobs, now a regent, recognized in the late 20th century surgeons' dwindling experience with management of patients with penetrating trauma. He led a group that developed a course in advanced trauma operative management called ATOM, A-T-O-M. This was adopted by the Committee on Trauma in 2008. But he didn't stop there. In response to the massacres in Colorado and Sandy Hook, he organized and has led the Hartford Consensus Conferences to devise strategies to improve survival in mass casualty and active shooter situations. June 22nd, 1988, in Marietta, Georgia, Barry McKernan, a fellow of the college, assisted by William Say, a gynecologist, performed the first laparoscopic cholecystectomy in North America. September of the same year, Reddick and Olson made the national nightly news with their report of their case. And the following year, they had a booth at the Clinical Congress with videos. The race was on. Surgeons flocked to weekend courses all over the country and paid to watch. The courses were largely commercial ventures and, for the most part, only observational. No hands-on experience for skills acquisition. They saw one, returned home and bought the equipment to do one, then teach one. The learning curve was steep and complications soared. The college reacted to this revolution, and in 1992, the Committee on Emerging Surgical Technology and Education, with Jim Carrico as the chair, was founded. The charge was develop processes to evaluate emerging surgical technology for safety and effectiveness, develop standardized education programs with verification of skills acquisition, and measure outcomes. Two of the most important education and quality programs ever from our college came from SESTI. First, in 2001, Ajit Sachdeva, an internationally recognized scholar of education and an early champion of surgical simulation, was recruited to lead the Division of Education to develop new and innovative programs. In 2005, the Regents adopted accredited education institutes. They provide standardized education and training for surgeons to adopt new technology or new procedures. AEIs are useful for education in all stages of a surgeon's career, from residency to retooling as surgical practice evolved. And second, in 2004, Scott Jones, who served as 82nd president, became the founding director of the Division of Research and Optimal Patient Care. He is responsible for bringing the National Surgical Quality Improvement Project, or NSQIP, from the VA hospital system to the college. There are now over 750 non-VA hospitals participating in this most important risk-adjusted program for quality, better outcomes. Loyal Davis, the 43rd president, wrote, "And no other medical organization, voluntarily entered into by its fellows, has exerted such profound influence on the discipline and art of surgery in the United States." So, that's the who, what, why, and how. That is your heritage. Where do we go? Simple. That's up to you. As with surgeons who were responsible for development and progress of surgery since the early 20th century, the 21st century belongs to you. Our college is the largest organization of surgeons in the world. I want to encourage you to participate in all the activities of your college. Participate at the local, state, and national levels. Establish personal relationships with leaders at all levels. Be an advocate for our education and quality programs for better outcomes. Participate in the online communities and your state chapter. Be a governor. Attend the Leadership Summit. Most importantly, participate in the annual Clinical Congress. This is your college, and it will be what you make it. I am confident that there are those among you who will be those leaders to continue the evolution of the college, to inspire quality, to maintain standards, and to ensure better outcomes. Do what's right for the patient. And remember these words of Emily Dickinson: "Surgeons must be very careful when they take the knife, for underneath their fine incisions stirs the culprit, life." Welcome to the American College of Surgeons. Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until the recession of officers, honorary fellows, regents, governors, dignitaries, and the new fellows has concluded. I would like to remind you that the reception honoring the new fellows of the college will be held in salons A, B, and C on level 1 of this convention center. And to you, please turn your robes before the reception. Will the assembly please stand?